Welcome back to this special edition of RFL as we look ahead at the new year we've just begun. And you got to wonder, will 2019 be the year of Mueller? It's not like President Trump doesn't have his own headaches from seemingly snap decisions to withdraw troops from Syria and Afghanistan and the resignations that followed it, uncertainty in the economy and the markets, and a clear repudiation from voters in the midterms. But there's also all of Trump's lies. He's averaging about 10 lies a day, according to the Washington Post. The near constant reports of chaos in the White House and the president veering in and out of meltdowns in and out of the Oval Office. A near total lack of experienced and trusted advisors left in his inner circle, with interim staffers now running key departments, including Defense, Justice, Interior, the EPA, and the UN. But all that may pale in comparison to the threat posed to Trump by just one man, Special Counsel Robert Mueller. His report could come out in 2019, but even that might just be a drop in the bucket. There are 17 known investigations into the president as 2019 begins. Mueller's overseeing 7 of them, including Russian meddling, Paul Manafort's contacts, the Trump Tower meeting, obstruction of justice, not to mention others that don't get a lot of attention, like Middle Eastern influence over the Trump world. The Southern District of New York is investigating the Trump Organization, payoffs to women that Trump allegedly had affairs with, even the Trump inauguration, and other investigations from U.S. attorneys in Washington, D.C. and the Eastern District of Virginia. And this list does not include state-level investigations like New York's lawsuit over the Trump Foundation. There's a lot going on in Trump world. Ellis, how much is hinging on Robert Mueller? And how critical is Mueller to Trump's future?
Huge, huge, and huge. And to me, what Mueller and his team have is what us writers call a narrative challenge, right? There is so much there, and you just ticked off a bunch of it. How do you tell that story in a way that Americans can get their head around it? I mean, we know there's a lot of stink there, but how do you tell that story? And it's not easy when there are so many elements of it. He's probably not going to be able to put the president on trial or send him to jail no matter what the evidence is, but boy, he can tell a powerful story.
So Phil, how do you tell that story, and does the specific story you're telling matter? Like if the payoffs to Stormy Daniels, if that winds up being will people at home just say, well, that's sex and he's lying about it to his wife and whatever?
Well, I think Ellis hit on it. You have to hire a writer to write this thing, first of all. You just have some, secondary guy.
High-paid writer.
Right. You just there you go.
Know anybody we can?
Yeah, right. You get some secondary schnook in the Justice Department writing this dry stuff. No one's going to pay attention, which is why you need a good press, a healthy press to distill this stuff when it eventually comes out. It'll probably be as thick as the Warren Report in 1964. Oof. I mean, it's going to the huge.
Yeah, that was
one
huge.
thing. But there are really only 2. I mean, all those investigations are interesting because they go to the heart of, a lot of what's going on. The idea that the Trump Organization has been picked up and planted on the White House, and the activities of tax things and all that kind of stuff. But the Mueller thing was really concentrating on 2 issues, and we just have to keep coming back to it, or 2 things under Russian collusion. Whether or not he had something to do or knew about the WikiLeaks dumping of emails from the DNC, and what really went on and who was really behind that June 9th meeting at Trump Tower with Don Jr. and Jared Kushner and all that sort of thing. There were other issues, but those are the 2 big ones.
Is that?
And what did he know? The cliche. What did he know and when did he know it?
Because that impacts the election and whether the election was valid in 2016.
But there are other issues too, like the emoluments thing,
right.
With the, but
right.
Those are all part of it. But I think these are the 2 biggest things. How much, I'm sorry, I didn't mean it, but how much is he right up against the charge of treason? Dealing with not one of our friends in order to overthrow, or not overthrow, but to influence a democratic election.
It's amazing. You just say that word and it seems like everything else just falls to silence because that word has so much weight to it and is such an extreme that we've never seen. Yeah. We'll come back to that. But Dom, the stuff about Trump's business world, the stuff before he was president, do you think people care about that, or do you think they sort of discount that by saying, well, we knew he wasn't the nicest guy in the world. We knew he wasn't,
His base that is narrowing won't care about that. But I like Ellis's word here. Stink. Was that the word that you used there?
Either stink or stank.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll go with stink. The issue, and now that we've started 2019, is going to be this. I think we can agree that you can't get the president while he's a sitting president. But here's the big issue. Is his son, does Mueller indict his son-in-law? Does Mueller indict Don Jr.? we don't know, they're involved allegedly in all of these meetings and so on. And I sat there in the courtroom as Michael Cohen was sentenced, and he has a look in his eye as he's about to go to prison pretty soon that he's going to drop every dime that and we don't know what evidence he has to back this up. So this is the year of what did Cohen actually release, and will it be public?
But also, as Ellis's reference on our earlier show yesterday was, about the closing in. The more this guy this president feels like they're closing in. You talk about he'll be up against a wall, pun intended, big time, and we don't know how he'll react. This is a guy, he could still get Mueller fired. He could still do, we've seen things happen already that could be, even worse in 2019 in terms of how he reacts, how he lashes back, that kind of thing.
It'll be fascinating to see that. It's another concern, though, on your point earlier that it's all about Russia and it's all about the validity of the 2016 election. Sherika, that stuff is going to be impossible to prove concretely. You're never going to be able to produce a smoking gun. Putin's not going to hand over a tape from the Ritz-Carlton in Moscow if one even exists. Though, boy, wouldn't that be? So how? If it's not something that's set in stone and so obvious to people, will they buy it? Even if there's a lot of circumstantial evidence?
I think it's less about whether people buy it at this point. There's just so much smoke that there's gonna be fire. And I know Mueller has been the face of all this, but when you think about the U.S. attorneys, remember, he got rid of most of the U.S. attorneys. The people that are coming after him now are the very people he put in power.
That's a great point.
So everything is burning around him. And if anything, I think Trump's gonna self-destruct. I think if he's removed, he might have to remove himself because heat got too hot.
There's also, the issue of obstruction of justice, which goes to the heart of the Russian thing too. I mean, we can't leave that out. If he was actively trying to.
I'm not even sure people are going to buy that, just because he's already made the strong counter argument. Hey, I'm just defending myself, and I think people will. Some people will agree with that.
That's true.
Yeah. One thing to remember, I think, and it's probably relevant to those of us who do these kinds of conversations, very difficult to change anybody's mind anymore. Whether it be on Donald Trump or some other thing. I mean, I don't know how many segments you guys have done of Talking Head television. I know we've all together probably done thousands. You think you've ever changed a mind?
I'd like to think so. I've done enough of these.
You're probably a better debater than I am.
Boy, 2019's off to a horrible start.
But Andrew,
we're tribal in this country.
But this is why we elect people. This is why we have a Congress. As crappy as our Congress is right now, this is why we have people who make those decisions as representing us, the majority of the people.
But I think Ellis's point gets to the heart of one of my concerns here, which is I think back to Watergate, what I learned of Watergate. I think 11 Republicans on the House Judiciary Committee voted against impeachment. They did not get a majority of Republicans. It wasn't until the tapes came out where it was Nixon saying basically scuttle the FBI investigation. And it was so obvious in everybody's face. And it was the smoking gun. And that's why I keep coming back to smoking guns and evidence that is just incontrovertible for people to digest no matter who they are.
But here's the thing, time's running out too. I mean, what's the over-under on what month of this year? I mean, you can't release this report in 2020, I don't think, although maybe they will. But you would have to believe that something has to come out this year, don't you?
First half.
I think so, or at least an interim report,
Yeah,
something
something.
to let us know. But again, Dominic, I mean, we have these conversations a lot, but it's got to be something that's everybody's got to get it if it's going to have an impact.
But let's keep in mind, the president has been attacking Mueller, attacking the media for exactly this reason, so that when the report comes out, he can say, "Don't believe it; it's not true." What is his term? Fake news.
Fake
Yeah,
news.
that is
We
this.
post fact.
This is not fake news. We got to go to commercial. Up next, it is never too early to talk about the 2020 presidential election, and that is exactly what we're going to do right after this.